Twitter is the strongest propaganda tool in the history of the planet. Twitter created the Black Lives Matter movement and the myth that black men face more violent danger from law enforcement than street gangs. Twitter is primarily responsible for the riots, anarchy, and violence in reaction to the death of St. George Floyd. Twitter convinced LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick, Jussie Smollett, Bubba Wallace, and everyone in Hollywood to believe that there was a pandemic of police officers shooting unarmed black men. I hope that Elon Musk's Twitter files exposes Twitter as a propaganda machine for the alphabet mafia. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Friday. The weekend is here, baby. Oh, we made it through another week. I'm so excited. I get to go visit my brother and family in Cincinnati this weekend. My brother's retiring from work. They're throwing a big retirement party. I can't wait to be there. And the party like it's 1999. I can't wait to do that. But before I do any of that, I'm going to give you a great show today. We're going to give you a great show today. Steve Kim, Shemeka Michelle will be here. I will be here with a fire starter that we'll unleash at the end of today's show. We're going to begin today's show talking sports with Steve Kim. Then we'll talk a little potpourri of topics with Shemeka Michelle. And then I'll get to my fire starter about the Twitter files. Fantastic show planned for you today. Almost as good. This show will almost be as good as the deal that Good Ranchers is offering right now. Short on gift ideas for people? Well, not everyone wants the new iPhone 27, 28. What number are we on? Seriously. In fact, a hard economic year for most has caused essential gifts to be more needed and wanted than ever. Essential gifts. Unfortunately, or fortunately, you can easily give the most essential gift of all this year. Delicious meat, great food, substance. Good Ranchers has gift boxes and gift cards so that you can give America's best meat and seafood this Christmas. With discounts on orders of 5 boxes or more, you can save on gifts for the whole family or your business. When you get someone's a box of Good Ranchers, you're giving them more than the best meat they've ever had. You're giving a true steakhouse experience. With 100% American, USDA, prime, and upper choice cuts of beef, chicken, and seafood, you're sure to beat out the new socks and regifted candles for the best gift of the year. Head on over to goodranchers.com and use the code FEARLESS at checkout for $35 off your delicious gift of meat. If you know someone that likes meat, then you know someone who will love Good Ranchers. Your gift goes further with them because they take the premium price out of the premium meats. Go to goodranchers.com and find the perfect box for you or someone you love in their curated selection of hand-trimmed meat and seafood. Give the best meat in America and support local U.S. farms and get $35 off your essential gift with my code FEARLESS today. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. You guys know I love Good Ranchers, and it's a great gift. You know people are going to actually use it. Do the right thing, be a good soldier, support Good Ranchers. Let's roll out to Los Angeles and bring in our main man on this show, Korean Cosell, Steve Kim. Steve, we'll start here. Baker Mayfield shows up in a Rams uniform 2 days ago, or I don't know how long ago, and then plays on Thursday night and throws a game-winning touchdown, leads the Rams back against the Raiders from down 16-3, just like Tom Brady, and then they win 17-16. Is this a one-off, or do you see, or is there signs of life and hope for Baker Mayfield?
Well, look, I give him credit. He did the Mariah Carey. When a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, yeah, a hero lied in him. But let me just get this right out of the way. Jerry Tillery got the save while Baker Mayfield got the win. That play bothers me. If I'm the Raiders If I'm Coach, whatever that McDaniel, that fancy guy, whatever his name is, right? The former coordinator. I would have not even let Tillery in the locker room. That game was wrapped up. After the sack by Max Crosby, the game felt over. And Tillery, to me, should have been Curvin Richards. I don't know if you remember him. He was the backup running back. This was in 1992. This was a game that was already won by the Cowboys. But Curvin Richards fumbled twice at the end of a blowout. And this was the last game of the year. Meant nothing. But Jimmy Johnson, and this is the leader that he is, the great Jimmy S. Johnson, said, Curvin, you're not living up to our championship standards. You're out of here. And I don't know how much they value Jerry Tillery, but I'm just telling you, if I'm his teammates, especially on defense, I'd be giving him the side eye. And you know, us Asians, we could really give a side eye like no one's business. That was egregious what he did. Now, with that said, I will give Baker credit. He actually played a pretty good game based on the circumstances. And according to Coach JB, who knows people on that staff, he worked tirelessly to go out there and prepare and to play a good game. Look, his numbers were not spectacular, Jason. 22 for 35, 231 touchdown. But
they were better than Derek Carr's.
Yes, but you know what? You're absolutely right. Without Cooper Kupp, only 71 yards rushing, and about 36 hours to prepare, yes, it was a hell of an effort. I think this is my view on Baker Mayfield. Is he good enough to be in the league? Yeah, he's probably one of the best 65 to 70 quarterbacks in the world, which means he'll have a roster spot for the next decade. The question is, will he be a starter or a career backup? Now, being a career backup can be very lucrative. Ask Chase Daniels, right? It's fine. I get the sense that Baker has much bigger ambitions and still thinks of himself as a frontline starter. So with Matthew Stafford basically being out the rest of the year, I don't know if the Rams have their quarterback of the future, but he is certainly the quarterback of their present.
Well, I see Baker's ceiling at this point as Case Keenum. That's about as high as he can go, as Case Keenum at this point. Will he be satisfied with that? I'm not sure. If he had the right attitude to be a backup, though, I don't understand why Carolina jettisoned him. And so that may be an indicator. That may be an indication that Baker still sees himself as a starter and, locking into the mindset of being a serviceable backup is probably not where he's at right now mentally. The other thing I'll say, and look, what Rich Gannon was able to accomplish after age 35 or after age about 34, 35 is something we've really never seen from NFL, just to be a journeyman, a backup, a guy, and then become a star again. But maybe if Baker can stay healthy and not, he's a bit undersized and, gets banged up and beat up pretty easily, maybe he can revitalize himself as a starter. But it doesn't seem like NFL teams give guys that opportunity anymore. They're always looking to the draft and some kid out of college rather than, can he be Geno Smith? Again, Geno Smith, I guess, would be another example of so far this year being a guy that's reemerged as a starter. But it seems like teams are always looking to the draft rather than looking at some veteran.
I want to say this right now. Rich Gannon needs to throw us a shout out. There is no show that has kept Gannon more relevant and has spoken as highly of him as us. Rich, if you're out there, give us a shout out, man. Here's the difference with Rich Gannon. Rich was a really good athlete. I actually think when he came out, and it was first with the Vikings, there was talk of him moving to another position because he had a lot of speed. The issue with Baker Mayfield is this. The Lincoln Riley offensive system is so quarterback friendly, it turns even little midgets into Heisman Trophy winners. And if you want to win a Heisman and you're a young high school blue chipper, go to Lincoln Riley and you're going to be in that discussion. Mayfield, for his size, unlike a young Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray, does not have that elite athleticism. And the thing that's been disappointing about him is that when he came out of Oklahoma, the scouts said, well, the thing is he's very accurate. He's a very accurate mid-range passer. he really hasn't been that guy. I mean, he sails a lot of balls over the heads of guys, and he's not what I'd call a precision passer, at least not on a consistent basis. Now, Jason, here's what I think happened in Carolina. That place is a dumpster fire. You already know that for the most part, they are tanking. And based on their record, they fired their coach. So, no one's in a good mood inside that building. And if you're Carolina, they're probably thinking, okay, Bryce Young or the kid at Ohio State. So you already know as a quarterback, you're thinking, this place here, I'm going to rent my apartment. I'm not even putting down a long-term lease. Now, once you get released, then it becomes, oh, God, I got to get any other job. So this is the reality for Baker. He's on his third team in less than 2 years. So now he's got to almost prove himself. And this is the goal for Baker. If you're not going to play great, because I think that's still a very tough situation, because the Rams' offensive line from day one has not been good this year. Andrew Whitworth has been very, very missed. Now they're banged up, and the Rams are just kind of going through the motions. This is something that he has to work on. Being a teammate that people really like, okay, being a likable guy, and reinventing your personality. Because one thing I've noticed about Baker during his time as a pro, and even before the process of getting drafted, at times he seems very petulant and prickly. And you're like, God, like he kind of comes off as Stewie, that little baby from Family Guy. He's got the same size, football head. It kind of reminds him, like, you know what? That's not what I want out of my starting quarterback. So again, play well enough that you can keep a roster spot, but be a likable guy, and you can work for the next 10 years and make millions of dollars.
Let's move on to Antonio Brown. He keeps finding ways to keep his name in the news. He tweeted out a picture of himself in bed, relaxing, maybe a little pillow talk, with a white woman who looked a bit like Gisele Bundchen, or at least that's what, she's face is kind of covered, her eyebrows look similar as Gisele. And so I'm wondering, and it turns out that this is some Instagram model of some renown that he's been dating named Sydney Moreau, and not Gisele. But do you think Antonio Brown tweeted out this picture hoping to fool people into thinking it was Gisele?
I wouldn't put it past him, but yeah, Antonio Brown seems to have a certain type. He seems to have a bunch of snow bunnies on his roster. And yeah, what a stunner. She's an Instagram model. Yeah, that's a real upset there. I don't know. Is Antonio Brown that insidious and that deep that for that night he's looking through his black book? Remember those things? Okay. She kind of looks like Gisele. Do you think it's that deep? Or do you think he was just getting some? I don't know if Antonio Brown's that much into trolling Tom Brady, to be honest with you.
He's that much into attention.
Yeah, no.
And he had to know. He had to know that people would jump to conclusions. You don't put the name out with the tweet or the Instagram post. He had to know it was going to draw speculation.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, look, there's a lot of women of that descent that kind of sort of look like Gisele. I don't know if he'd go that deep. I mean, there are reports that Tom has moved on. He may not even care. I mean, once you turn on...
Oh, he would care.
You think, yeah,
he would care. That's the mother of his kids.
Yeah, that is true.
If she were laid up with AB, he would care.
Yeah, that's true. Because I've seen the pictures of those who are reportedly entangled with Tom, and I'm like, Tom, you that's it, man. You've turned it in. You've upgraded, and So I'm just saying, I don't. But you're right, the whole mother and the kids thing. You're right. Sometimes when the lease is up, you got to turn that car back in. A lot of miles on the odometer.
Look, Justin, I'm gonna be frustrated. The whole reason I wanted to even talk about this is so we could. Because I did the research on this. And it took me to Sydney Monroe's Instagram page, and so I just wanted to put up some of her Instagram pictures. Oh yeah, there we go. This is the fake Gisele. I just wanted to put up some of her Instagram pictures and let the audience decide for themselves whether she looks like Gisele or whether better than Gisele or some comments here on.
She's the faux Bunchen. You mean Fizzel,
Yeah,
right?
Full bunging, yeah. So, hats off to AB, I guess. All right, let me keep moving. I'm going to get in trouble, so let me keep moving. We'll get myself in trouble. It was interesting. I only looked for about, 15 minutes maybe at her, but it was journalistic work. I was trying to figure out who this was. I was not being creepy. So let's move on to Deion Sanders. He was welcomed in Colorado last night at a basketball game. They seem to love him at Colorado, and it looks like Deion seems to love Colorado. Let's play a clip of Deion being welcomed at a CU basketball game last night.
Well, during the timeout, they were waiting all night for this. The loudest ovation, not for a KJ Simpson three, but Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, has entered the building.
It doesn't look like Jackson
Coach
State.
talks about creating culture, creating an environment, getting enthusiasm, getting the fan base awakened when they take over a job. Watched, you and I have sat with tons of coaches, and that's something they always talk about, but never have I seen an atmosphere like this.
Steve, they seem to love Deion at Colorado. Deion seems really happy at Colorado. He's hired, I don't know if you know this, but his offensive and defensive coordinators, I believe it's a Charles Kelly, Alabama's, I think or associate defensive coordinator, 60-year-old white man, I believe. And then Sean Lewis is offensive coordinator. He was the head coach at Kent State, a 55-year-old white coach. I'm not judging Deion because, I don't believe in a quota system and all the diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff. That's not my cup of tea. But I wonder, we do all this talk. Remember, Deion said he's doing this. He moved from Jackson State to Colorado to do all this for black coaches. Remember, that was part of his deal. The black coaches aren't being replaced at the Power 5 level, and I got to do this for the black coaches. But when it comes time to pick his top assistants, doesn't seem to be able to identify any black candidates. Am I making a molehill into a mountain, or is there something to glean from that?
Boy, the honeymoon. As Robin Roberts once said on NFL Primetime, it's prime time in Colorado. By the way, Deion looks very happy enjoying that clean running water, not having to lock his car doors and roll up the windows. He seems very at ease out there in Boulder.
Looks very comfortable in all that snow, don't he?
Yes,
very
he does.
comfortable
Talk
in all
about
that
snow bunnies,
yeah.
Right? This is interesting. Look, there's a reality to what Deion is doing with what he's getting paid, over $5 million now. And he's probably given a pretty good budget for his staff, because that's part of the business now. His job is to win. It's not just to be a salesman. It's not just to be a figurehead. His strength is probably, I'm assuming, relationships with young kids, mentoring young men, and recruiting. So maybe in his own mind, he's thinking, you know what? I could mentor other coaches and bring them up as position coaches, but I'm going to have to win, and I'm going to need some real strong X's and O's guys. As I told you a couple days ago, Jason, Kent State played Georgia this year between the hedges, and offensively, I was impressed by what Kent State did. They actually moved the ball fairly well with the team that I'm thinking, how many of those guys even got a letter from an SEC or a Big Ten school? So, and then the other guys from Alabama, that's from the Saban tree. And so that's a pretty good tree. I give Deion credit. I'd like to know what the makeup of the other staff is, because I think you get 9 on-field coaches. So let's see what the other guys look like. But again, Deion realizes that the honeymoon can end quickly if you don't win. There's a lot of excitement. Everyone is very jacked up about it. But again, there is a football element to this. And I will give him credit. It may not look good optically, and certain people may bring it up. They may have an issue. But again, his job when it's all said and done, Jason, he's got to win some football games.
Listen, I totally agree and get that. I wish he would just say that that's his job and say that that's what his agenda is. Because here's what I believe about creating opportunities for other black people, or for people in general, but for black people. As a black man, what I say is the biggest thing I could do to help other black men is to be successful myself. And so if I have success running Speak for Yourself and being on that show, that's going to create other opportunities for other people. Marcellus Wiley, Emmanuel Acho, now Joy Taylor, Shady McCoy, whoever else they want to put in there. It's no different than when I was at the Kansas City Star as a columnist and created opportunity for a lot of people, not just in Kansas City, but around the country to get that look as a columnist. You just got to be successful. And so that is and should be Deion's number one priority, and he's got to surround himself with people he believes can help him be successful and not play the color game. But Deion is the one that has played the racial card in this situation and kind of backed himself into a corner. Again, I don't want to be hypercritical of Deion because I actually like what he's doing to some degree, or not like is a strong word. I understand why he left Jackson State. I believe he was put in a tough position where he had no choice but to leave. So I'm not going to beat Deion up. Finally, Steve, I want to ask you about one of your favorite topics, college football, Heisman Trophy run. Someone has suggested, I think the guy's name is Aaron Murray or whatever, runs a influential YouTube or blog site or
former Georgia
social media
quarterback.
feed. Is that who did? Oh yeah,
I
okay.
believe so. Played
Well,
for Mark Richt. They had
all
some
right.
good teams about a decade ago.
I remember
yeah.
him as a quarterback. I didn't know that was who this was. But he said that Heisman voters may hold it against Caleb Williams, the quarterback at USC, because of his painted fingernails that basically said F Utah. This was before the Pac-12 championship game or during the Pac-12 championship game. Painted his fingernails with the F Utah, said that could hurt him with Heisman Trophy voters. You buying that?
I'm really not. And for the record, I've said this 2 weeks ago after the UCLA game, one of the best UCLA SC games I've ever seen. That's the Heisman Trophy winner. And I thought he played well enough under tough circumstances last week against a jacked up, fired up Utah team that he's still my Heisman Trophy winner. Now, I have a question, because I'm so old school, I'm prehistoric. I have a problem with any of my football players, if I'm a coach, painting their nails at all. So my question is this, Jason. Do you have a problem with Caleb Williams or any player painting their nails? Or is it just the messaging? Because to me, if I saw one of my players being the Asian Vince Lombardi I'm like, hey, buddy, get some Baraxo, scrub that off. We don't do that here. That's just my view of it.
Steve, I can't believe that you went there. I was not expecting that. I was expecting myself to go there. That's something that I certainly believe. That's where I was going with my take. Is just like, oh, this dude, the quarter. What you trying to tell me with the painted fingernails?
Yeah.
What's going on here? And so, I don't like the painted finger. I don't like the F Utah messaging on the painted fingers, and you know, I was kind of glad they got beat by Utah after seeing that, and I saw some pretty good memes where people painted his fingernails saying "I'm soft" and things like that. But it'll be interesting at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Will he be going with the painted fingernail look at the ceremony? And I can't wait to see if his dad's there and what his dad thinks. Maybe his dad will paint his fingernails too.
I just miss the good old days when college football teams would get off the plane in Army fatigues. Okay, I miss that football. That's old school football. That's old time football. Can we get back to that? Can we get back to teams walking out of steak fries? Did the Japanese sit down? None of this. Hey guys, do you like my acrylics? Oh God! But he's still my Heisman Trophy winner. I got to tell you, I think he had a great year, but you know, he's still my Heisman Trophy winner. Believe it or not.
Korean Cosell really going old school and get off my lawn.
I'm that guy now.
I wasn't expecting that.
I am definitely that guy. Yes, I am.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. Now, keep in mind, Mike Tyson painted half of his face. So we've seen some crazy things from athletes, particularly in the boxing world. I don't know if painting, well, I'm not big on the painted fingernails. So thank you, Cosell. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the football this weekend. Let me tell you guys about our good friends at Preborn. Tragically, every minute, unborn babies' futures are sucked out of existence. But amid the darkness, there's a light that shines, and that's Preborn. Preborn introduces mothers considering abortion to their unborn babies through ultrasound. Once they hear that heartbeat and see the precious life, 80% of those women will choose life. Preborn pregnancy clinics are positioned and located in top abortion areas where most abortions still take place. But Preborn does not stop there. They love and support these mothers with maternity clothes, diapers, counseling, and so much more for up to 2 years. If you want to do good this year and help save the lives of the innocent, you want to be involved with Preborn. Preborn is completely dependent on you, the pro-life community, as they fight the giants. For just $28, you can rescue a baby's life, or $140 sponsors 5 ultrasounds, and now through a match, your gift is doubled. 100% of your donation will go toward saving babies. Our goal is to save 50,000 Blaze babies. Will you join us? Just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 keyword baby, or donate securely at my favorite way to donate, preborn.com/Jason. That's preborn.com/Jason. Be a good, fearless soldier. This should be your first act of the Christmas season. Save a baby's life. Feel good about yourself. Do something to help save America. Save a baby's life. Preborn.com/Jason. All right, you can send us feedback. FearlessBlazeShow@gmail.com. Shemoke Show, Shemeka Michelle. Welcome back. Let's roll out to North Carolina and bring in the First Lady of the Fearless Army, Shemeka Michelle. Shemoke Show, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
You got to help me out here. They told, oh, look at that. You got the Fearless background up. Is that the first time you've had that up?
Yes, this is my first day.
Oh, it looks awesome. Yeah. Oh, my God. The whole color scheme works very well with what you're wearing today. Did you plan that with the brown top and all that? And the whole thing, you look amazing.
No, I didn't. I needed to put on something that I could get in quickly. So, no, I didn't plan it.
Got you. Well, you're going to have to help me out here. I let Shemeka. Shemeka told me some things she wanted to talk about. I'm like, great, let's talk about them. Shark Week, first, you got to help me understand what Shark Week is. And then I guess people are complaining that Shark Week is too white. There's too many white sharks. Should there be black sharks? What is Shark Week? Is some TV show that I'm not aware of?
Well, what this person, I guess I don't know, it's a celebration of when they talk about sharks, but this person has a love of sharks. But when they were sitting during the pandemic, they realized as they were watching episodes of Shark Week from years ago that it's predominantly white men that are interested in sharks. And when they show these shows, it's predominantly white men who are actually doing the commentating on it. And so this person was upset because they feel like that's racist. And it was a crazy article to me because I grew up in the era of Jaws, 1, 2, 3, Jaws Revenge. I never once looked at Jaws and said, why aren't there more Black people being killed by sharks? You know, I just think that there are certain professions Black people don't care about, or certain things that Black people just aren't interested in. You don't see Black people gathering in mass to climb Mount Everest. You don't see Black people running into line to bungee jump, and you don't see them trying to cuddle up with sharks. That's just not something we do. It's not because it's racist and people won't let us into the profession. We aren't interested. And so the writer also went on to say, I think there's been a negative connotation of sharks that's been pushed out there. Let me tell you, Black people, if there's a negative connotation, we are not like getting to know you, getting to know all about you. We don't care. So it's just crazy that we are so caught up with race that now we're upset that it's only white men interested in learning the life of sharks. And it's a big deal. It's a story, and it's not a story. This is really DIE. Die. They want us to die.
They need a TV show called Bid Whist Week or Spades Week, and then all the
Right.
commentators would be Black. And I guess we would be happy. But I don't know any Black people, and I'm sure they exist, who can talk about sharks expertly. I like swimming in a pool.
Mm-hmm.
I've never liked swimming in the ocean. I'm always afraid about what's at the bottom of the ocean. I want to wear flip-flops or something on my bottom of my feet. I don't like, I'm afraid of, and I've been in the ocean. I've done what are the little speed motorcycles or whatever you do, jet skis or whatever I think they call you. I've done all that, but I don't even like swimming in lakes. It's hard to clean our hair, for one, to wash our hair, and I get in the ocean and that dirty lake or whatever, and I'll spend 3 days in the shower trying to get that crap out of my hair. Anyway, they're complaining about nothing, but no surprise there. Another topic you were interested in, New York Times sees Brittany Griner as some kind of hero and an example of the greatness and strength and honor and courage and service of Black women. Help me unpack this.
Yeah, so this article is just a crock of crap, Jason. First of all, they referred to Brittany as one of the world's best basketball players. And I'm wondering, compared to who? Compared to me? Yes. Compared to some of the women in the WNBA or even those not in WNBA? Yes. But I could take a man who never made it to the NBA that's a great basketball player that would still be better than Brittany Griner. And so this whole notion that she's one of the world's best ball players, no. If you want to say compared to women, yes, but compared to a lot of men, she would not even compare at all. And so they also, in this New York Times article, they're complaining about pay for WNBA players. And I just don't understand, number one, why is it so hard for them to grasp that we don't want to see a bunch of burly women patting each other on the butt? They don't have they don't garner the attention that the NBA does. Not only that, why do you feel like you should be treated differently at the same time of saying that you want to be equal? So if you want to be equal, you have to understand that the WNBA just started, I think, in 1996. If you go back and look at the people that played in the NBA years ago, they didn't start out making millions. You all need to be able to work towards where you want to be. Nothing should just be handed to you. So you feel like you should be treated equal, but you don't want to do equal work. You don't want to put in the equal time that men have put in for decades to get to where they are now. So it just bothers me that we keep hearing all these women complain and saying, well, Brittany wouldn't have been in Russia if she was making what the men were making. They should have started the league then in the 40s when NBA started. They have work to do. And Jason, one of the last things of the article that really just got me so upset is Dawn Staley saying that one woman has the strength of 10 men. And that's just not true. Even if your last
She said
name,
what? She said what?
One woman has the strength of 10 men.
Oh my God.
And
gotta go
even
look
if
this
your
up
last
now.
name is Van Dyke, that's just not true.
I gotta look this up. She's one woman has the strength
Of 10
of 10 men. What was the title of this story again? Celebrate Grinders.
Yeah, her strength
here's
and
the-
struggle. Yeah, and
this
she was
isn't the
just
right-
talking about how all the women they came together and they actually made a change by standing up and demanding that she be released, and that people better take notice of how strong Black women are. And it just makes me wonder, Jason, that do Black women really feel so oppressed that they have to buy into this narrative that we're so strong, we don't need men, we need to be leaders, we need to be in charge, and men just need to follow us, when we can look and see that it has not been good for the Black community? Why are we buying into this?
So I'm going to read the paragraph before, but in the nearly 10 months she was in prison until her release on Thursday, Griner became a symbol of much more. The inequities in men's and women's sports, the complexity of the fight for social justice, and especially the power of the WNBA players and their supporters who steadily rallied for Griner's freedom. Quote from Dawn Staley: "Women, when we're advocating for something, when we want something to happen, we've got the strength of 10 men. I hope people are watching." They got the strength of 10 men. I got you. Well,
Crazy.
will I get in trouble? I'm gonna ask this as a question. This isn't a statement, it's a question. Would I be wrong for thinking that Brittany Griner in the fourth quarter of a WNBA game has the stench of 10 men? Would that be a bad question to ask? Could I get in trouble for that?
I think you'd be pretty accurate, for sure.
Maybe that's what she meant, and they just took her out of context. I've seen reporters misquote when they're taking notes down. I bet you she meant in the fourth quarter of a WNBA game, or after a month in solitary confinement in Russia, Brittany Griner has the stench of 10 men. Maybe that's what she meant. I'll get in trouble for that, but that was a question. That was not a statement. It was a question. All right, Shemeka, you want to make it make sense. I saw this Project Veritas video, and I need you or somebody to make this make sense for me. Let's play the video.
I had our LGBTQ plus health center come in. They were passing around butt plugs and dildos to my students, talking about queer sex, using lube versus using spit.
Meet Joe Bruno, Dean of Students at the prestigious Francis W. Parker Private School in Chicago, which happens to charge $40,000 per student.
They're just passing around dildos, butt plugs. The kids are just playing with them. They're like, how does this butt plug work? How do we do, how does this work? That's a really cool part of my job.
Parents might be stunned to learn that Bruno's version of love and acceptance means handing out sex toys to underage students.
So I've been the dean for 4 years. And we had a drag queen come in, pass out cookies and brownies and do photos.
It's so amazing. And everybody's cool with that, the butt plugs and the dildos. Nobody complains.
No.
I mean, if the parents found out, would they?
No. It's queer sex. This is the drag queen that came in.
What's her name?
Alexis Bevels.
Alexis Bevel.
And just hung out in my classroom.
Was there?
Or hung out in my office.
You have so much freedom and so much wiggle room.
So much freedom. So much money.
I mean,
to do stuff.
Trustees are okay with that too? They don't know.
They would. It's like I wouldn't even like run it by them. Like, why would I run it by them? They would be like, "Oh my God, that's wonderful."
Yeah. How old were the kids with the classroom?
14, 18. They're like, how does this work? How do we do, like, how does this work?
Right.
So yeah, that's a really like cool part of my job is I don't have to worry about stuff like that.
This man needs his ass beat, but make it make sense.
First of all, Jason, his nails are painted. So that's the first sign that any parent should have noticed, that his nails are painted. But I want to know, what are parents actually teaching to their kids? And why do we feel like we have to now submit to children? Even if you feel like, okay, social media is out here, they're not going to be virgins till marriage. Do we not have any standards? I have one child under 18 who is still a virgin. All three of my kids, once she make it to 18, I will be able to say we required them to remain virgins at least until they were grown and could make their own decisions. I don't understand why parents aren't going into these schools and turning them inside out and upside down with these adults grooming their kids to even figure out whether they're bisexual, asexual, pansexual. Why are we allowing this to happen? Why are we not saying, hey, you're supposed to be teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic? My child doesn't need to know what if she's heterosexual, bisexual, because she's no sexual. Stop teaching this to kids. What are we doing as parents? What are we doing as adults that we have just decided, oh, well, they're probably going to see it on the internet anyway, so let's put it in school. Let's teach them about butt plugs. I am 47 years old. I've never used a butt plug, and any man that would ask me to do it, we got a problem. Houston, we have a problem. And it just bothers me that more parents are not aware of what's going on. Here in Moore County, we just had a situation where someone shot out power grids, and they were thinking that it was because of a drag show that was in town. And so I was talking to another parent who said, I don't understand the big deal if, well, first of all, of course, it's wrong if you shot out the power grid and left tons of innocent people in the dark. But when they're saying, I don't understand what's wrong, it's just a drag show, why can't they let adults be adults? These parents are not aware that they're bringing this into the schools, and it's not just adults being adults. They are grooming children. And what I know, Jason, is that I used to be a stripper. One thing I can say for sure, there were never kids in the strip club. So there is a difference when you talk about letting kids experience something that should only be for adults. It just bothers me that we're actually even letting this stuff ride.
It's amazing. Shemeka, it leads me to a question, because I know you watch the show all the time, and so I'm throwing you a curveball here, but I watched that video of that guy and that teacher, and it immediately takes me to like the Israelites that I had on the show on Wednesday, and like why they done moved out into the middle of nowhere, and they just like, these people are crazy. I'm gonna go start my own thing off in the middle of nowhere. And so I know I didn't tell you I was gonna ask you this, but I did want to know, what did you think of the Israelite guys that we had on Wednesday?
There were some of the things that I definitely understood, like when they talked about, I can't remember which one it was, but when he talked about the way his wife kind of revered the pastor over him, or just how they couldn't, bring their wives under submission and they didn't want to listen, and how the church kind of runs the church. Some of those things I could definitely see. There are a lot of women that esteem the pastor well above their own husband, and they can be very disrespectful to the man while honoring the pastor, while wanting to be at the church every time the doors are open and wanting to serve him and wiping the sweat from his face, but won't even, wash clothes at home. So there were certain things that I saw them talk about that I am familiar with when it comes to the church. Being there all my life and being in different church settings, I've seen a lot of that. So I can understand some of their feelings of, we don't want to be a part of what we experienced with the Christian church, because some of it's pretty bad.
Pretty good for me throwing you a curveball. Thank you. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Go to youtube.com/Jason Whitlock. Hit notifications, hit subscribe. I'm going to start a fire next. Twitter has never been a free speech platform. It's always been a propaganda hub for Northern California values. Twitter launched in March of 2006. The same year, according to Pew Research, the percentage of Americans supporting same-sex marriage began an unrelenting rise from 35% to around 70% today. That's the power of Twitter. It's a mind control platform. Twitter shapes cultural norms and determines the thoughts and beliefs allowable in workplace settings. It does this through its relationship with corporate media outlets and popular culture influencers. A small percentage of Americans use Twitter, but 100% of media outlets and entertainment corporations use the app as their guide for narratives and norms. This provides Twitter outsized and unprecedented influence over media and culture. If you want to work in the mainstream media or Hollywood, your Twitter feed and public proclamations must align with the values of Twitter employees, who primarily take their cues from San Francisco's hyper-liberal and gender-fluid environment. Thursday night, Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, released the second installment of the Twitter Files through independent journalist Bari Weiss. Bari Weiss's reporting revealed Twitter's censorship and shadow banning of conservative influencers such as Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA and Dan Bongino, a prominent radio host. Conservatives have long known and complained about the social media outlets' manipulation of their reach and influence. The Twitter Files confirm what we've always known. But I don't want us to miss the larger implications of Twitter's systematic censorship. This isn't about Charlie Kirk's follower count or how many retweets Dan Bongino gets. Twitter's censored not to harm individuals. It's censored to influence cultural norms. Twitter outlawed a biblical worldview on marriage. Any Twitter user opposed to same-sex marriage was forced to closet their beliefs to ensure growth. In order to avoid being labeled a homophobe and unfit for work and leadership, journalists, broadcasters, entertainers, athletes, and coaches all adopted pro-same-sex marriage stances, or they avoided the subject altogether. This helped train the public to adopt the same position and empowered human resource departments throughout corporate America to demonize any employee who might object to Pride Month, Drag Queen Story Hour, or any aspect of the LGBTQ movement. By 2011, 5 years after the launch of Twitter, more Americans favored same-sex marriage than opposed it. Twitter is the strongest propaganda tool in the history of the planet. Twitter created the Black Lives Matter movement and the myth that black men face more violent danger from law enforcement than street gangs. Twitter is primarily responsible for the riots, anarchy, and violence in reaction to the death of St. George Floyd. Twitter convinced LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick, Jussie Smollett, Bubba Wallace, and everyone in Hollywood to believe that there was a pandemic of police officers shooting unarmed black men. If any prominent Twitter feed cited data and facts proving that police actually were less prone to use deadly force on black men than white men, Twitter unleashed an avalanche of tweets labeling the user an unrepentant bigot or sellout. The smearing storm could cost a high-profile user his or her job and reputation. Most people chose silence, or they simply co-signed the false narrative that law-abiding, compliant black men risked their lives during routine traffic stops. Twitter normalized the anecdote-driven worldview rather than a data and fact-driven worldview. Media outlets used a handful of anecdotes to paint all of law enforcement as violently hostile towards black men. The New York Times, Washington Post, and USA Today published an endless series of viral stories that fanned racial animus and justified rioting and looting. Again, Twitter controls the media because it is the media's source for narrative and information. The media then tells the public what Twitter thinks is interesting, relevant, and important. Twitter decided Shaun King was important. King is a white man who has adopted a black identity and cast himself as a racial justice warrior, a modern-day Martin Luther King. Shaun King rose to importance promoting the Michael Brown hands up, don't shoot false narrative in Ferguson, Missouri. Twitter amplified King's voice and the voice of DeRay McKesson, a gay wannabe MLK who regularly met with Jack Dorsey and high-end Twitter executives. King and McKesson's greatest accomplishments were building Twitter followings. Those followings legitimized corporate media outlets using them as sources and persuaded celebrity black influencers to turn to King and McKesson for social justice guidance. Kaepernick, the NFL kneeler, fell under the spell of Shaun King. So did Steph Curry and all the other social justice athletes. Who Twitter censored is likely not as important as who it amplified. For the media and Hollywood, job security, opportunity, and compensation are tied to social media following and reach. Jack Dorsey's Twitter dictated the career arc and opinions of many of America's influencers. Embracing the LGBTQ-BLM alphabet mafia was required. Before Elon Musk, Twitter was a mind and emotion control psyop that reinforced Northern California's version of sexual hedonism and racial revolution. Can the platform ever be a force for good? Not when its employees must primarily reside in the San Francisco cesspool. That's my fire. I want to buttress this fire. I'm not going to go on forever about this because I like this. I took some time, put this together. Hope that you watch this more than once and really digest what I'm trying to say here. And because we talk on this show, and I've been talking on this show, and I've been writing for several years now about this alphabet mafia, this coalition between the LGBTQ and the BLM crowd. You toss in the feminist and you have an alphabet mafia that is imposing its values, its worldview on all of America. I want to cite you an example from I saw just today on social media that shows you the agenda and who's really behind everything that we saw go on with Twitter since its launch in 2006, and certainly under the direction of Jack Dorsey and the Prague Arwal and whatever this Vijay Gandhi, the woman that was running Twitter. It's been a propaganda tool for the alphabet mafia. That has been its agenda. People have sat around and wondered, how did America's opinion on same-sex marriage change on a dime? How did it happen so quickly? We don't see public sentiment change that rapidly. We hadn't seen that before in human history. It was Twitter. It's the social media apps. They're in control of our minds. They set the agenda for our cultural norms, what we think is acceptable. And then when you tie those cultural norms and you impose them in a workplace environment where unless you adopt these values and these opinions, you're disqualified from leadership in corporate America. You adopt these values, your leadership, you can elevate within a corporate, more money. Money's tied to all of this. Your viability inside a corporate structure is tied to adopting these alphabet mafia agendas, points of views, and perspectives. Twitter does that. When executives live in fear of being roasted over Twitter, that's how Twitter controls things. When people can't get acting jobs unless their opinions fit the Twitter narrative. When people can't have broadcasting jobs unless their point of view fits the Twitter narrative. This is all alphabet mafia driven. Everybody knows it. No one wants to talk about it. I want to cite this one example from today. Elton John announced over Twitter that he's leaving the platform. All my life, I've tried to use music to bring people together. Yet it saddens me to see how misinformation is now being used to divide our world. I've decided to no longer use Twitter given their recent change in policy, which will allow misinformation to flourish unchecked. This is Elton John, a rock singer, and a good one. What does he know about misinformation? What is he talking about? Seriously, what is he talking about? Is he just throwing out the word misinformation to disguise his real agenda? Because I've been saying, this isn't brand new for me. Anybody that's followed me has been watching me say this over social media, in writing, on television, anywhere I can. Twitter has been home for the promotion of LGBTQ values. Elton John doesn't have the balls, the honesty, the integrity to say, hey, Twitter's no longer going to be the propaganda hub for LGBTQ values. I'm out of here. I'm leaving. That's what he's upset about. I don't have a problem with him being upset about it. He's gay. Just say it. Just admit it. This has been our home. This has been our tool to legitimize and normalize our lifestyle. Say it with your chest out. Don't sit, oh my God, they're the home for misinformation. Where am I going to get my COVID information from that I can trust? I can't get it from Twitter. This is the home for misinformation. They're going to deny election results on Twitter. Oh my God, this has to stop. That's all a gimmick. Elton John, stick your chest out and say what you really mean and what you're really upset about. Twitter isn't going to normalize and impose my lifestyle on the rest of America, and I'm mad as hell about it. Say that. I would respect that. I would respect you for saying that. Don't hide behind misinformation. All these people that you see running from Twitter and making these big public pronouncements, what they're really upset about is that the gayest communication tool in the history of the world has now been taken over by Elon Musk, and Twitter's not going to be nearly as gay as it has been. and they're mad about it. I'm not ashamed that I'm happy Elon Musk has taken Twitter away from the alphabet mafia. I'm going to say it with my chest out. I'm glad. And all these other ballless men that have been shamed into silence or out of fear or I won't get a job that can't say, whew, this Twitter thing was way too feminine for me. And I'm glad that men and honesty and free speech now have a chance, heterosexual men now have a chance to be heard over this very important social media app. I'm happy about it. If that makes me homophobic, I will wear that label with honor. I'm not homophobic. I just am pro the Bible and a biblical worldview. I'm pro things that actually lead to order and proper development of children. This app has benefited, assisted the drag queens that want to come into schools and sexualize little children. Twitter has helped normalize that and make it commonplace. Elton John knows it. You should know it. Everybody should know it. I hope that the Twitter Files is honest enough to cover that. All right, we'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you next week.
Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free.